Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive. Loss is something that we will all experience at some point, and it's something that can be really difficult to deal with.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, we actually found a really great article to kind of dig into today called
Oh, cool.
How to Mourn a Loved One, Finding Strength and Healing with Time. And
Okay.
something that really stood out to me right off the bat was this idea that there's no right way to grieve.
Yeah, it's different for everyone, right? There's no one size fits all.
Exactly.
Like one of the things the article talks about is that grief is non-linear.
Oh, interesting.
And so you might find yourself feeling a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're really sad and then you're angry, and then other times you might even be laughing as you remember something.
Yeah, it's like this crazy emotional roller coaster.
Exactly. And the article talks about how important it is to just let yourself feel all of those emotions.
Yeah. Don't try to bottle them up.
Yeah, because think about it like a physical wound. You don't just ignore it and hope it goes away.
Right.
You have to take care of it and let it heal.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Your emotions are the same way.
So let's say someone's listening right now and they're going through all these feelings.
Yeah.
What do they do? What's a good first step?
Well, the article talks about journaling, which might seem really simple,
Yeah.
but it can be really helpful. It's kind of like having this conversation with yourself where you can just get everything out
Yeah.
without being judged.
Like a safe space to just process everything.
Exactly. And there's actually part of your brain that's specifically involved in processing emotions, and journaling actually helps activate that part of your brain.
Oh, wow. So it's not just like venting, it's actually helping you heal.
Right.
I like that. And it can be especially helpful because, like you said, sometimes you don't really feel comfortable talking to other people about these things.
Yeah.
Especially if they maybe don't understand what you're going through.
Yeah, and that actually brings up another important point from the article, which is all about connection and support.
Yeah.
So when you're grieving, it's normal to want to withdraw,
Oh, yeah. I can totally see that.
but it's really important to reach out to people
Yeah.
when you're ready.
I guess even though everyone grieves differently,
Mhm.
just knowing that you're not alone can be really helpful.
Yeah, exactly. There's this shared humanity and grief that connects us.
Right.
And when you share your experiences with someone you trust, it validates your feelings.
Yeah. And just having someone listen without judgment can make a world of difference.
Exactly.
That makes me think about support groups, which I know the article mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen firsthand how valuable those can be for people?
Oh, absolutely. They can be so powerful because you're surrounded by people who truly get it.
Right.
They understand your pain without you even having to explain it.
It's like finding your people.
Yeah, it's like you've been wandering in the dark, and suddenly you find this group of people who are all holding lanterns.
Oh, I love that. That's such a good analogy. Speaking of finding ways to navigate this journey, the article also talked about the importance of keeping our loved ones' memories alive.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that this isn't about clinging to the past or dwelling in sadness.
Right.
It's about celebrating the love that you shared.
Yeah, finding ways to keep that connection alive in your heart.
Exactly. And the article gives some really practical tips for doing this, like creating rituals or tributes.
Oh, yeah.
Like maybe you light a candle every day, or make a donation in their name, or even just take a moment each day to think about a favorite memory.
It's like those little things that help you feel connected.
Yeah.
The article also mentioned creating a memory box.
Yeah, filling it with photos and letters and special little things that remind you of them.
It's like having this tangible connection to them, even though they're not physically there anymore.
Mhm.
I want to shift gears a bit now and talk about something that the article really emphasized, which is self-care during mourning.
Yes, such an important topic.
It's so easy to neglect ourselves when we're grieving.
It really is. And that's why the article really focuses on self-compassion,
Right.
because grief impacts your whole body, not just your emotions.
Yeah.
You might not be sleeping well.
Yeah.
Your appetite might change.
Right.
You might just feel exhausted all the time.
Yeah, you just feel drained.
Yeah, and it's important to remember that these are all normal responses to loss.
So you shouldn't feel bad for experiencing those things.
Exactly. You need to give yourself permission to slow down and rest.
And to be kind to yourself,
Yeah,
because you're going through something really tough.
exactly. And if you think about it from a scientific perspective, grief puts a lot of stress on your body.
Oh, yeah.
And even simple things like getting enough sleep, eating healthy foods, and taking a walk can actually help regulate your nervous system and bring some stability during a really chaotic time.
It's like creating little pockets of peace and calm to
Exactly.
help you get through it.
And the article also talks about how helpful it can be to create little routines for yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Even something as small as starting your day with a cup of tea or taking a few minutes to meditate.
Yeah, just something to ground you.
Exactly.
And speaking of grounding ourselves, I think it's important to remember that healing doesn't happen overnight.
Oh, definitely not.
And this is something that the article doesn't sugarcoat at all, which I really appreciate. It acknowledges that there will be good days and bad days, that those waves of sadness might hit you even when you think you're doing better.
Exactly. The article talks about how grief softens over time.
Oh, that's a nice way to put it.
It's not about reaching a point where you suddenly stop feeling the loss.
Right.
It's about learning to ride those waves and knowing that they will eventually become gentler.
It's a process.
Yeah, and everyone's process is different.
There's no set timeline for this.
Right.
And comparing yourself to others is just going to make you feel worse.
Exactly. You have to be patient with yourself and know that healing takes time.
And it's okay to ask for help if you're struggling.
Yes, absolutely. Therapists and counselors are trained to help you through this.
They can give you tools and support to navigate all of this.
Right.
And that brings us to another interesting point that I don't think we talk about enough,
What's that?
which is how grief affects our relationships with others.
Oh, yeah, that's huge. Loss can put a lot of strain on relationships.
Especially because everyone grieves differently
Exactly.
and at their own pace.
So it can lead to misunderstandings and conflicting needs.
Yeah, and even resentment sometimes.
So how do we navigate those relationship challenges when everyone's hurting?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Well, the article talks about how important communication is.
Yeah, just being open and honest about what you're going through.
Even when it's really hard.
Yeah, even when you feel like shutting down.
You have to let people know what you need,
Right.
what you're afraid of.
What's going on in your head?
Yeah,
It creates space for understanding,
exactly.
empathy.
And it's also important to remember that it's okay to ask for space when you need it.
Oh yeah, sometimes you just need to be alone with your thoughts.
Yeah,
It's about finding that balance between connecting with others and taking care of yourself.
exactly.
And sometimes professional help can be really beneficial for navigating those relationship challenges too.
Oh, yeah, like couples counseling or family therapy.
Right, just having that neutral third party to help you communicate and work through things.
It can make a big difference.
Because grief doesn't just impact individuals, it affects whole families and communities.
Absolutely.
And seeking help for those relationships can be a really important part of healing.
I agree.
As we're starting to wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I wanted to come back to the article's core message,
Okay.
which is that even though mourning doesn't have this clear roadmap or set of instructions,
Yeah.
there are things that can help us through it. It's like we've been gathering all these supplies for our journey,
Yeah.
and now we have this toolkit filled with knowledge and compassion.
And practical strategies.
Exactly. So what are some of the key takeaways from this toolkit?
Well, first and foremost, allow yourself to feel all the emotions that come up.
Yeah.
Don't try to fight them or suppress them because that will just make it harder to heal.
And reach out for support when you're ready.
Yes.
Talk to people you trust, join a support group.
Mhm.
It helps to know you're not alone.
Exactly.
And don't forget to find ways to keep your loved one's memory alive.
Yeah.
Whether it's through rituals or tributes or just by sharing stories about them.
Right. It's about celebrating their life and the impact they had.
Exactly. And while you're doing all of that, don't neglect self-care.
Yeah.
Make sure you're getting enough rest, eating healthy foods, and doing things that nourish your mind and body.
Even small acts of self-care can make a big difference.
Yeah, because you need to be strong to get through this.
And remember, be patient with yourself. Healing takes time.
There's no rush.
You'll have good days and bad days, and that's okay.
Yeah, don't compare your journey to anyone else's. And embrace those moments of joy when they come, because happiness doesn't diminish the love you felt for the person you lost.
Absolutely. It's a way of honoring their memory by living a full life.
And speaking of honoring their memory and living a full life, that brings us to a really thought-provoking idea from the article.
What's that?
It asks us to think about what our loved ones would have wanted for us.
It's a beautiful thing.
Like, what dreams would they have encouraged us to pursue?
Mm-hmm.
What acts of kindness would they have inspired us to do?
It shifts our focus from the pain of the loss to the legacy of love
Exactly.
and the potential for growth.
In meaning making,
Yeah.
it's about recognizing that even though they're physically gone, their love still shapes us.
Absolutely.
So as we move into the next part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to ponder.
Okay.
What small act of kindness inspired by your loved one can you do today to bring a little more light into the world?
It could be something really simple, like a kind word to a stranger or a helping hand to someone in need.
Just a little something to honor their memory and make the world a slightly better place.
It's a beautiful way to keep their spirit alive.
And a reminder that even in loss, there's still so much love to be found.
Yeah, and so much hope.
Exactly. So take some time to reflect on that.
Okay.
And we'll continue our conversation in just a bit.
Sounds good.
All right, see you soon.
See ya. It's like planting a little seed of their love and watching it grow
Yeah, and spread.
and make the world a little brighter.
I love that. And speaking of bringing more light into the world,
Yeah.
I think it's really important to talk about the impact that grief has on our relationships.
Oh, definitely loss can really shake things up
Yeah, it can create a lot of tension
because everyone grieves differently,
and at their own pace.
right?
So you might have these misunderstandings or conflicting needs.
Yeah, and sometimes even resentment.
So how do you navigate those relationship challenges?
Well, the article talks about how crucial communication is,
Oh yeah, being open and honest about what you're going through.
even when it feels impossible.
Like when you just want to shut down and isolate yourself,
You have to try to let people know what you need,
what you're feeling,
your fears, your anxieties.
everything.
It helps create a space for empathy,
For understanding.
right? Because everyone's hurting in their own way.
And it's important to remember that it's okay to ask for space when you need it.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes you just need to process things on your own.
To be alone with your thoughts.
Yeah.
It's all about finding that balance between connecting with others and taking care of yourself.
And sometimes professional help can be really valuable for navigating those relationship challenges too.
Oh, for sure, like couples counseling or family therapy.
Having a neutral third party to facilitate those conversations.
That can help so much.
Because grief affects everyone around you.
It ripples outward.
Exactly. So taking care of those relationships is a really important part of healing.
It is. And as we're wrapping up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I think it's important to circle back to the article's main message.
Which is?
That even though mourning is this journey without a set path,
Yeah.
there are things we can do to help us along the way.
Like we've been collecting all these tools for our journey.
Yeah.
And now we have this toolkit filled with understanding and practical advice. So what are some of the key tools we've gathered?
Well, first of all, remember to let yourself feel all the emotions.
Yeah, don't bottle them up.
Trying to suppress them will just make things harder in the long run.
And reach out for support.
Yes. Talk to your loved ones. Find a support group.
Knowing you're not alone can make a huge difference.
It really can.
And find ways to keep your loved one's memory alive.
Yeah, through rituals, through stories, through sharing your memories.
It's a way to keep their spirit alive.
Exactly. And while you're doing all of that, remember to take care of yourself.
Yeah, self-care is so important.
Make sure you're getting enough rest, eating healthy foods, and doing things that nourish your soul.
It's like giving yourself the fuel you need to keep going.
And remember, be patient with yourself.
Yeah, there's no timeline for healing.
Some days will be better than others, and that's perfectly normal.
Don't compare your journey to anyone else's.
And don't be afraid to let yourself feel joy.
Yeah, those moments of happiness are a testament to the love you share.
And they don't diminish the pain you're feeling.
They're a reminder that even in loss, there's still beauty in the world.
And that brings us to a really beautiful idea from the article.
Is it?
Thinking about what our loved ones would have wanted for us.
Yeah, like what dreams would they have encouraged us to chase?
What kind of person would they have wanted us to be?
It's a powerful way to shift our focus from the pain to the legacy of love.
And it reminds us that their spirit lives on in the way we live our lives.
So as we continue our conversation, I want to leave you with this question. What small act of kindness inspired by your loved one
Can you do today?
to make the world a little brighter?
It could be something really small.
A kind word, a helping hand.
Anything to honor their memory and spread a little love.
It's a beautiful way to keep their spirit alive.
And to find meaning in their absence.
Exactly. So we'll take a quick break and come back to explore this idea even further.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
It's a way to turn their absence into a force for good in the world.
Yeah, and I think that's a really beautiful way to think about it. We've been talking about all these tools and strategies for coping with loss. But ultimately, I think the most important thing is to remember that you're not alone.
Absolutely. Everyone experiences loss at some point.
And even though it feels like your world is falling apart,
Yeah.
there are people who care about you
Want to help?
and resources available to support you.
Don't be afraid to reach out.
Yeah, talking about it can really help.
And there are so many amazing organizations and support groups out there.
Dedicated to helping people who are grieving.
So you don't have to go through this alone.
And, as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I just want to reiterate that healing takes time. There's no right or wrong way to do it.
And everyone's journey is different.
So be patient with yourself.
And honor your own process.
And remember that even in the darkest of times,
There's always hope.
and there's always love.
The love you shared with the person you lost will never fade,
And it can continue to be a source of strength and comfort.
even as you move forward.
And, I think that's a really beautiful thing to keep in mind.
It is.
That even though death can feel like an ending,
Yeah.
it's also a beginning,
A beginning of a new chapter.
a new way of carrying that love with you.
And honoring their memory.
And I think that's a really powerful and hopeful message.
It is.
So thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive.
It was my pleasure.
I hope it's given you some food for thought
And maybe some comfort.
and some hope for the future.
Yeah.
Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
And remember, you're not alone.